Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I come to you fully cleared through Anabasio Savage. Pretty good tier overall. I'm actually going to be, just in case there's any here, and I suspect there's going to be quite a few, whether they be this week or next week, I'm probably going to skip questions that are just generally, what did you think of the fights or the tier or something like that. Only because, A, I'm going to tell you right now, so that way that question is answered no matter whether it's there or not. And B, because I'm going to be making videos breaking down all the fights, as well as an overall thoughts on the tier and a thought on Endwalker rating as a whole. We have lots of stuff for that planned, even with 16 basically about to be here. I want to get those things done and out. So real quick, thoughts on the tier. I think it is probably the best overall tier of all of the Endwalker raids for Pandemonium. The first fight has moments that are really on par with a first fight, and also has moments that are very much, things like Devour, Levin Kick essentially works like Devour. So it has a good balance of like moments that kind of allow you to just enjoy the fight and the design, and moments that kind of make you really focus. So it's got a good balance, but it's still tuned as a first fight. The second fight, I think, was by far the best fight of the entire tier. I think it should have been the third encounter in Savage and not the second encounter like we have here. It's balanced much closer to a third mechanic. The actual Savage mechanics are far more difficult than I would have expected for a second encounter. And the actual damage, healing, and mitigation checks are all way more severe. For the third fight, it was fine, but it's too much like E11 against Fatebreaker. So not bad, but less impressive by proxy of that already existing. And I think being even done a little bit better than this was. And finally, the last fight, the first phase is fantastic, and the second phase is not a letdown, but there's really only a couple of things that are like really exciting about that last phase for P12. So I don't rate it as highly as some of the other second phases that we've had, but overall really good. There's nothing I hated. That was it. There were things that were just like or nice. And no, like, no P7 or P6, nothing even remotely close to that in terms of quality, playability, readability, all that stuff. I thought they did a fantastic job overall with the tier. So with that being kind of my TLDR version, expect a far deeper dissection and analysis of all the encounters, and again, an overall thoughts video. But for now, we're going to get on to the Q&A. Thank you to anyone who is sponsoring over on Patreon for supporting. You don't have to. Enjoy the video. It's free. It's always going to be free. But if you do want to support, there's always that. There's always super thanks, but none of it is mandatory. It is only brought up because it's there, and why not? With that, I got to get to the gym, and I have all those videos to record, so let's get to the Q&A proper. Hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy. Greetings and salutations. I'm going to move this microphone a little closer. With some of the Final Fantasy XVI skills having clear DMC similarities, it made me wonder what your favorite DMC weapon is. For bonus points, feel free to give your favorite melee and gun. I've always been a big fan of the rocket launcher since we've got it. But the shotgun, however, I think will always be my personal favorite. The movement skill on the shotgun where you dash forward as Dante will always be a big favorite. As for my favorite weapon, it's not actually a Dante weapon. It's Nero's Devil Bringer. Being able to pull the enemies towards you is always a favorite in Devil May Cry 4 and 5, and without that, I always feel like something core to the game is missing. Very likely that Garuda is going to be a choice for me for icons in Final Fantasy 16 for that reason alone. But those, I'd say those are pretty good answers. So I guess if I wanted to include melee, I actually really do like the Exceed mechanic, but it's going to have to be the Cerberus. The Cerberus is always going to be up there for me as well. Hashtag Mondays and more with a Sunday, Mrhappy. Lolly ho, and extra hellos and salutations for anyone that's forgotten. Don't cover for them. They don't deserve it. Hello as well. First of all, congrats on clearing Anabasios and Comcast Savage. Oh wow, this was like 2 hours ago. Hope I can get past 11 strikes soon. Fingers crossed. Cat-related question. I'm about to become a cat parent. I was wondering if there's anything that's super useful I should buy. Anything that makes everyone's life easier would be great to know. If you have carpets, buy plenty of cleaner. Buy way more cleaner than you need. It's nice to have things for what if scenarios. So if you find out that the cat that you adopted is big on fur balls, like they just get a lot of fur balls, buy stuff that helps them with fur balls, that reduces the frequency of fur balls. I'd always say buy one more litter box than cats you own. So if you own one cat, get 2 litter boxes. If you have 2 cats, get 3 litter boxes. So you can put them all over the apartment. Getting an automatic cleaner for a litter box is not a bad idea as well. Or getting a litter genie, which is like it's like a diaper genie, but it's for litter. It's for, you know, just cats, a cat genie, whatever they're called. All of those are very useful. Other than that, there's a few automated toys you should probably buy, because if you have a cat that demands attention, giving them some way to entertain themselves is very nice for you. But other than that, be careful about toys that have small objects like mice. If it's very tiny and your cat could potentially swallow it, you don't want that to happen. So I'd stick to toys that are attackable more so than edible, or of sizes that are attackable versus edible. Those are just a few things off the top of my head. And other than that, just any regular grooming tools that you need, and finding the right food for them is probably going to be a fun time. So good luck with that. Hashtag whatever day this might be with Mr. Happy. Don't worry, we're on time today. Hey man, hi. Hope it went well with the week 1 clears. I'm asking this on a Monday. Yes, we are done and good. Speaking of Savage, I was wondering what your favorite mechanic from the previous 2 tiers are. They might not be the hardest ones, sure, but they're no less good because of it. Also, which ones were the hardest? Okay, there's a lot of questions in here. Whether for your static to deal with. So I'm going to say specifically for me, Dominion on P8S Phase 2. I had a very hard time properly seeing the ground pulses. They were too similar in color to the arena, and so following them was a genuine difficulty for me for way longer than it should have been. I can do it now. I was able to do it eventually, but I had to like really kind of hone in. It made doing the first 2-minute window an absolute disaster for me as well during the second phase there. Favorite mechanic though from the previous 2 tiers, Curtain Call in Hesperos Phase 2. I think it's one of the best, hey, it's you are the boss mechanics, where you have all the line AoEs, blasting at all those people, or I'm sorry, you're breaking the AoEs in order to trigger the room wides, and then you have to dodge the conal, so there's a huge mit check, there's a huge heal check, there's a lot of pressure, you have to do it twice over, the boss has a cat, like, I think Curtain Call is one of the best last 60 to 80 seconds of an encounter that we've ever had. Period. So that one definitely takes the cake for me. And head pats to Aloha or Ivy. Ivy's napping. Aloha's annoying me. So they'll both have to wait till later. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. By the way, the comment above this about change strategy and working on Samurai now, I don't know how I forgot that. That was like one of the biggest things that we kept saying they had to change. Hey there, Future Happy. Hope Savage is going well. Thanks and hi. Longtime listener, first time questioner. Enjoy your tombstone bonus. I'll take it and buy more Manderville weapons. And more. And more. And more. I've been very hyped for 16 for a long time, but your recent coverage has raised some questions. I love me a good character action game, but I originally got into Final Fantasy for a reason. I'm a little worried that even if it's really good, it won't give me what I've come to love the series for. Although even if 16 doesn't feel super FF, trust me, it feels very Final. You will certainly feel very Final Fantasy in the first however many hours. So as a reminder, I got to play when Clive was young, and I got to play a little bit of Clive when he was an adult. The young section was the lowest level section that I got to play, so thus I assume it's one of the earliest sections of the game. And you get very, very Final Fantasy feels very, very quickly. I've still got the next 7 remake game and rumored 8 and 9. Okay, so the 9 remake rumor has some merit only because it's from the NVIDIA leaks from years ago. 8, I've heard nothing. I don't know where that rumor is coming from, but that sounds more like a copium rumor. I even think the 9 rumor is still copium. That animated series they were going to do for 9 seems to have just completely halted, so I have no idea what's going on with that. So for the question, from what you've seen from 16, does it feel more like a DMC game with a final? No. So this actually is something I tweeted, and it's kind of like a passing comment I made about 16 in another video. So some surface level stuff looks Devil May Cry. It doesn't feel like a Devil May Cry game when you're playing it. It's really strange because when you watch someone, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that looks like this animation or something kind of like what Nero does or Dante does. Functionally, And in terms of the way you put things together, it feels nothing like a Devil May Cry game. It's so strange to me. I think the icons are the big reason for that. Having a cooldown-based combo system with the icons means you're more focused on Clive's actual swordplay a lot of the time. And if you're less experienced with the game, you're going to focus more on survival and rely on the icon skills. So there's actually a huge emphasis on managing cooldowns, which is not something you need to do in Devil May Cry literally ever. So I think that's going to give it a very unique feel. And I think that's why, despite having played Devil May Cry and religiously loving that franchise as my second favorite one, it wasn't super evident to me that this was just Devil May Cry with a Final Fantasy skin. They feel completely different. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Happy. Hi. Congrats on the week 1 clear. Thanks. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Definitely found this tier a lot more enjoyable for prog. Yeah, I wanted us to clear a little quicker. I was hoping not to go all the way to Saturday. But in terms of the actual encounter and the prog itself, yeah, it was good. I thought there were just a few like major hurdles for every fight. Once you got over those hurdles, you felt like you made significant prog, which is really good for the dopamine hit. And yeah, it made those getting over those hurdles way more satisfying, knowing that you kind of had like this not easy phase, but almost like some sort of like recuperation phase, like the moment where like you did it, you go, and then focus on the next thing. My question actually relates to lore. I was wondering what your thoughts are on the lore implications we got from this raid here. To me, it answered one of the biggest questions I've had since beating Endwalker of the what now. We went to the end of the universe, took care of a planet-destroying threat. With the revelations of the possibility of Ultima in the heart of Sabikar from another planet dimension, I feel like so many new paths. I mean, we've known about other planets. I mean, Endwalker in particular covers the prospect of other planets. Omega is from another planet, you know, the dragons are from another planet. Things being otherworldly and being other dimensionally is not that far gone. Some of the times we run into that stuff, it's not canon. Like the Nier stuff isn't really canon to Final Fantasy XIV. It's canon to Nier. It just kind of exists in a pocket of Final Fantasy XIV. And then you have stuff like the collaboration events with Shantoto, who jumps, you know, between dimensions, you know, lightning jumps between dimensions. Like that kind of dimensional stuff happens. And then you have the Rising, which is literally like a dimensional hop between the reality and the, oh my goodness, Aloha. Aloha, I spent 20 minutes with you before this recording. We cannot do this. He does this all day. He just sits in the kitchen where he doesn't eat, by the way. He just likes hanging out in the kitchen. And he wants me to just come sit in the kitchen with him. I don't do it. I've never indulged him. But when I go into the kitchen to live my everyday life, he interprets it as me coming to the kitchen to be there with him. So he just goes back to the kitchen. Driving me nuts. Aloha's driving me nuts ever since the move. But yeah, there's always been wide open stuff. I don't think I'm thinking too much about the Ocuria. I mean, it's obviously a major factor. It's a possibility. It's there's a whole rest of the planet full of divinities and lore and stuff like that is completely unexplored to us, and those kind of things existing elsewhere or having come from another planet and ended up in those locations, completely viable. That's why I never try to like go too far with predictions like, oh, I think we'll go to Marasidia and the New World next. What is there waiting for me? I don't know. Like, I could understand how we maybe start to get to those locations, but the curiosity to me is what is happening there that we didn't know about that's world threatening, you know? And there you go. I mean, there's so many possibilities. So for me, it's not so much that it opens possibilities. It's just one of those possibilities that was always there because I was never thinking there were no possibilities, if that makes sense. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi. Hope your Savage Prog went well and was drama-free. I'd say for the majority, other than tensions getting high because we went into 5 days of prog, I'd say it went very well. The question I have this week is about the future expansion jobs. Expansion job most people are assuming is going to be a magic DPS. Do you think they're going to give it a res? I think they tune back on resing as an identity next expansion. I think for casual content, they'll have resing like widely available. I think for hardcore content, you're going to see a dial back of availability on reses. Not like 3 reses a fight, like no like hard limit, but the access to the frequency with which you can do it, I think is going to be limited because I think it is actively hurting Red Mage. They keep bouncing back and forth between Red Mage's, I guess, how it's balanced versus its res. And they've mentioned it before. Like, they've said they've thought about getting rid of it. They've thought about making some sort of change to it so that Red Mage doesn't hold this identity of being a Res Mage. But it's like, I think they need to actively take that step. So here's the thing. I won't say it's one or the other, but I'll say that changes to the way that Reses are made available may make it not that major of a factor whether or not it is there. Hashtag Sundays with Mr. Gladge. I sure am. Hey, Haps. Hi. Hope you're doing well. Same to you. Bit of an odd question this week. Do you have any advice for transitioning away from being a clicker? It's a bad habit I've kept since playing WoW years ago, and I'm struggling to make the move away. Not a weird question at all, because a lot of people start by clicking skills when you're brand new to a game, and they're like, here's 40 skill slots. You think of a way to do it, and that's how some people logic into doing it. It's a practice thing. It's literally a... One thing that might help is actually trying to play with only your keyboard, but I think it's not a bad habit to be in. Like, Angelus plays keyboard only, but not having the mouse eliminates the ability to click and thus forces you to get used to keybinds. But when you have two hands on the keyboard, it's very different than when you only have one. Buying an MMO mouse and just practicing hitting the buttons on the side as alternatives to skills you were clicking is the only other thing I could possibly say. So, yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm at advice wise, but it's something that's just gonna take a while. Hashtag Happy Mr. Monday with hello, hi. As a relic enjoyer myself, despite knowing you haven't gotten all the relics yet, understandably, yeah, I'm just bored. I got two relic related questions. One, considering the Endwalker relics are probably going to be yet another 90 tome card. Yeah, that sure is. What do you think? What do you wish to be a potential step for the Endwalker relics? I want to make this clear because there's no point, because nobody fucking listens to half the things that I say. They hear one part and they just want to disagree with the part. I don't want them to take away the tome option for any step. I want an additional means of earning progress towards steps for people who want to more actively target content or help people with certain content and not just only be able to do level 90 stuff that gives level 90 tomes that I just spam over and over again. Like, yeah, is that actively playing the game and actively working on the relic? Sure. Is that the only thing I want to be asked to do? No, I'd rather be given a second or third option in addition to that. So if I do want to grind them, I have some variety and I have some options and I have individual goals that are laid out for me that are not so broad. When goals aren't specific, sometimes they're not satisfying to achieve. And just being given an ocean of options is either decision paralysis or lack of interest in any of the options you're given. And you don't even have infinite options. You have to do something that gives you level 90 tomes, which, yes, you could do roulettes, but then you can only do level 90 stuff. Like, what if I want to go farm an old extreme? And if there was a light farming step, I could use it as an excuse to go do old extremes, get old mounts, maybe get some weapons for glam, go into some old dungeons. I could do those things if they were even remotely an option. I could help someone level if I could get something from the leveling dungeon. Like, it's just, there's no other choices and there's no motivation to sit there and spam expert or whatever in order to just get tomes or just do hunt trains or whatever. So yeah, I would prefer to, it doesn't matter to me is what I'm saying, as long as it's a focused second means on top of tomes to make progress. And two, what's your favorite single relic weapon overall? I don't know. That's way too, you know what? I'll say the Spherai from A Realm Reborn. Huge fan of the Spherai. Hashtag Mr. Happy with Mondays. Hello there, Senor Happy. Hi. Just one question just one question this time around. I don't know why I was trying to add comes to mind. That's just one question comes is all I said. Okay. Are the job rotations seen in some websites like crucial to doing hard content? Yes. Like, do you have to play it like that or can you come up? No. Okay, so let me be very clear about this. There are some encounters where you have to make changes to your rotation based on the encounter itself. But what is on those sites is a mathematically proven best thing to do in any generally given situation. Now, I will say this. No one's sitting there expecting you to land every single ability at the exact time that you need to. That is a personal thing that you work on, that you look to improve on. But the opener and the different timings, those are things you need to get down. The game has been built at this point in such a way that your 2-minute burst windows need to be on point to do hard content. That is the one thing there is no leniency on, because they create the greatest outliers and the largest burst of damage against the enemy in order to ensure they die quickly enough. If you are freestyling that or just doing whatever you want, it is a massive hindrance to the people around you. So you need to find the thing that works best for the fight that you're doing, which will change and may require either some experimentation or more research on more than a single opener. All those things are possible. But you can't just say, well, I'm going to do this because I think it's better. Maybe, I mean, there's a chance you land on the right thing, right? But don't just look at what they're doing and just be like, well, I'm not going to do that because I think I can do better. The people who have made those openers have put so much time and research and potency and testing and everything. It's just, you will not outperform them unless you are of their caliber, in which case you probably don't need them in the first place, which would, mean that you're just great. So that's all there is to it. That being said, focus on mechanics as you're learning your rotation and make sure you can do the mechanics. If you can't do the mechanics, it doesn't matter how good you are at doing your 2-minute buff window. You're just going to die anyway. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hi. Similar to how they did a triple triad card mount, do you think we'll ever get an Orchestrian or minion mount? I think they should. I think collection-related rewards are something they should always strive to have more of. A great example is the triple triad card mount. Like, a lot of people didn't have much interest in triple triad until there was a mount because they didn't actually want to play triple triad, but there was a carrot at the end of the stick, and all of a sudden you had tons of people doing the tournaments and tons of people going around and challenging the NPCs and learning how it worked. And now they're concerned about falling behind it in case they do it again, so now they're still participating in it. I mean, that's they've always managed to entice people to stay on top of content by doing that, and thus minions, Orchestrians, whatever, if they add another end goal to the collections of those types of things, then it's fuel in the fire for things that people A, already like doing, and B, getting people who may not have been motivated to do those things before participating in game content. So yeah, they should always be striving to find things that they can add that are collection related, like overall collection goal related. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Greetings and salutations. Hello. I'll be heading over to FanFest this year. Have fun. I heard they do a Q&A with the devs of 14 during the events in the past. I had a question for them, but I figured I should ask you first for your take. So keep in mind that they don't always do an actual Q&A where the fans in the crowd just get to ask questions. They have before. So it's something they always do. Just saying that now. Games like Sorry, I see Fortnite and it just makes me like I have a natural inclination to laugh when I see Fortnite. Games like Fortnite and Minecraft have creative suites where users can make money on the up and up through creating content for the game. Do you think the devs of 14 would consider implementing a user-generated content shop in the future? 0% chance. For a multitude of reasons. One, that is a legal disaster that Fortnite has already managed to go around, that Square probably has no interest in going around. Number two, Final Fantasy XIV very much cares about how its game looks to other people, regardless of whether content is user-made or made by the devs. Thus, if people are making awful content with this, making things that do not make the game look good, and that is their goal, or that is just something that they achieve, they will shut it down immediately. So, is there that 1 in 100 people? I like to think of it like this. Have you ever looked at one of those, I guess Roblox is an example, that Dreams game that came to PlayStation a while back, where it's like, oh, here's the tools to make whatever your mind can think of, but how much garbage you have to sift through to find something that's even remotely creative or interesting or has any inclination of being finished or improved or worked on. Or every gamer thinks they're a developer until they actually have to fucking do something. And that's no more evident than user-created content. For the occasional person who puts something out there that is amazing, that I have enjoyed, I love you for whatever game it may be. But that is not something that I expect the 14 devs would ever be okay with, because they would shut down anything subpar in an instant. So, no, I don't think they will ever allow that. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. How are you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Enjoying myself? I'm trying, I guess. Lately, I've been wondering why the range DPS is a support role, but also afraid to double down on it. They already have a basis for it. Machinist being a debuffer, Bard is a party buffer, and Dance. I mean, they do support, though. It's just, are you saying you just want them to just say fuck it to DPS and just like be only support? No, there's no good reason to double down on it. They achieve exactly what we call them in that of the support role, which is, by the way, not what the developers call it. That's what we call it. They just call it ranged DPS, ranged physical DPS. We as players, and honestly, I'm going to double back on this a little bit. We as players don't even regularly call it the support role anymore, because in endgame raids, we actually have callouts for supports and DPS. Tank and healer falling under support and DPS falling under the other 4 people. So this is something that you may occasionally hear people call that role, but it is not officially recognized. It is not how they treat the role, but they accept basically that they, by default, give a lot of jobs in this role more utility than the other jobs in other roles. Thus, they get that inclination. So, no, they will never double down on them being supports and just crippling their DPS, because you have to completely change the way the jobs work. Essentially, if you wanted a full-blown support in Final Fantasy XIV, you would need buffs and debuffs that last about 5 seconds. Because they're never going to let you buff people and then just stop playing the game. Like, oh, they're buffed, I'm going to chill. Or like, they're buffed, now I'm going to press my broil equivalent, I suppose. You know, they're going to want you to have to do something more than that. So that's why. Hashtag Mr. I should skip this question Mondays. Hey, Haps, how's it going? It's great. Should skip this one. How's your Frog this week? Looks to be drama-free. Yeah, it was fine. It took a little longer. I think everyone started getting very tense on the 4th day, but we finished it early on the 5th day, so no tensions boiling over. Thankfully for that. I was wondering if you'd want to see Square start incorporating unique arena design. I mean, I always want new and unique things. Like, it's the answer to this question would never be no, give me more. I mean, you know, maybe some people might answer it that way. No, I only want circles and squares. Don't do anything fun or unique or interesting. You know, yeah, I mean, I just want good encounters. If they can make a good encounter in a circle, great. If they can make a good encounter with a really weird arena, great. I just want things to be fun. And I don't think the arena always defines the fun, but a good arena with a good, like, flexibility or uniqueness definitely goes a long way. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Hi there. Hi. Is there any title you really love aside from First Class Troll? So it's World Class Troller. And no. I have hit the end game of titles, and that title will never change unless they add a new Troller title. Square, do not add a new Troller title. For the love of God, do not do it. Okay? Anyway, or one that's no longer available. I don't even remember the ones that are no longer available. They just don't matter to me. I have the thing I need. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi. I'm in a static for the current raid tier and I'm playing a samurai. I usually have dance partner and other melee is Reaper. If I switch to monk, should the dance partner go to Reaper instead? I think monk still takes it. So one of the big things for samurai is that it has guaranteed direct crits, and that is a big, I mean, that's not the only reason why you dance partner them, but it is a big reason why they are dance partnered. They guaranteed don't have to deal with as much swingy damage as possible. Thus, that 5% goes much further and is much more reliable on them than other jobs. And I think that's true for monk technically too, because of boot shine. Boot shine's the only super reliable damage there. But I think that's enough to warrant it. Now, here's the thing. I haven't looked at logs in a while. I can tell you right now that if your Reaper is out DPSing your monk, not saying your Reaper is out DPSing or would out DPS you, but, you know, in a theoretical, I would give it to the Reaper. But the big thing is who has a better 2-minute burst window. That's a big determining factor on Dance Partner. Which one's bigger? Which one's more reliable? Which one's more important? Like, Ninja's 2-minute burst is nutso. So if you have a Ninja and another DPS and it's not a Samurai, you're probably giving it to the Ninja almost every time. But Monk, I think Monk's damage is super consistent, which still makes it a good choice. I don't know. It's been a while since I've had to partner someone who isn't a Samurai. Because you got to remember, I pretty much raid once every, like, 4 months. And at that time, I figure out who in my team is my dance partner, and I just do that. Like, I look at who's doing the most DPS, what job are they playing, and there's just like a quick checklist. Do I have a ninja? Yes. Do I have a samurai? Yes. Like, I just look through that. I don't actually look at Dragoon, Monk, or Reaper ever unless they're my only choices, and I've never had that situation this whole expansion. So my offhand knowledge of it's lacking, quite frankly. So I think Monk still gets it over Reaper, but I'm not confident in that answer. I'm totally open to being corrected because I actually don't. It's not even a correction. It's just somebody else say the correct thing because I'm not saying anything that is educationally or factually backed or correct. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Happy. Hi. As someone who comes from a more single-player RPG game background, I find a lot of enjoyment in 14 as a single-player game. I still play 11, so I get my social enjoyment there, but I've been happy with the recent trend of soloifying content in 14 because it means I can do things when I want, not have to worry about the drama. How do you feel about this movement? I have said that the reason why 14, I've said this many times before. I'm not saying you should know that I said it. I'm just acknowledging that I've thought and commented on this before. What's it called? I've said that the reason why 14 is as successful as an MMO as it is that it is not trying to be a conventional MMO. It is trying to be a game that you just play and enjoy, and your reason is your own. If you enjoy doing the story and then unsubscribing and then resubscribing whenever there's story, great. You are someone who bought the game, paid for a subscription, and occasionally pays for a subscription in order to enjoy this one particular aspect. If you just enjoy the raiding and you want to log off and not pay your sub between getting bis or between beating raid tiers, great. You can do that. Are you someone who really likes being online all the time, doing housing, doing socializing, role-playing, whatever? It's a game that is genuinely trying to take the word theme park and give everyone a reason to visit the theme park once in a while. It does not want to entice you to stay there the whole time unless it's housing. It is not trying to convince you that you have to super grind and play all the time. It is trying to attract you based on respecting your time. Thus, instead of you playing a bunch and burning out and then not playing anymore, you instead feel very in control of the amount that you play, which makes consumers, I think, feel better about when they choose to use their time to play the game. So, yeah, I've said that this is why it's successful, and it's why a lot of other MMOs are trying to do it now. Yes, World of Warcraft was the first one to really make your 1 to max level experience be soloable. This is treating that as an experience and not a means to an end, which is something a lot of KMMOs have been trying to do. Is they've been trying to craft some sort of story, some sort of engagement with the player during that solo experience, even if it becomes largely forgettable in most MMOs or isn't of interest to people in other MMOs or just as a player in general. It's that movement that you are seeing more and more with the frequent MMO releases, and something you will probably continue to see in future generations of MMOs, other than ones that are trying to be like old school MMOs and are focused more on that grind and that forced social experience. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey Haps, hi, congrats on the tier clear. Thanks. I have a question regarding streaming, if you're willing to answer. Imagine I was like, no, I will never answer a question about streaming. I want to get into streaming as a hobby. Okay, do you have any tips as I want to play mostly RPGs on stream, and I've heard they're not the best for streaming. So, if somebody tells you that something's not best for streaming, you're doing it as a hobby, which means there's no inclination of earning, there's no inclination of viewership, there's no inclination of anything. You press live and do it. It doesn't matter what game it is. It doesn't matter what it is. You're just doing it. That's literally all it takes. It sounds to me like you're listening to somebody who looks at the trends of RPGs in streaming and sees there's not as much average viewership, which is absolutely true. But you don't start streaming because you're like, oh, I need to get a bunch of viewers. I need to, like, you don't. You just do it because you want to do it. So my tip is, do whatever you want, because that's how all of us started doing it. And that's it. That's all there is to it, really. So, press live. All right, there was another really long question about pet stuff, and similar to last week, my head was just like, as I was reading it, I just like couldn't even really fathom the full. I'm gonna try briefly before I read the one on the screen. It was just a question about if they just cull a lot of like scholar stuff, so there's not like placing the fairies and everything. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they just completely cull the pet hotbar from Scholar as a whole. There's really no need for it. All of your most important abilities are not on the pet hotbar anymore. They're part of your actual job skills. So they've already done 90% of the work there for you. And that's it. The question is, do they want to keep leaving the fairy to embrace and just do the embraces and that's it? And if they do, they'll probably leave it. But if not, then it's whatever. Maybe they'll make it every time you cast Broil, the fairy casts embrace on somebody or starts casting embrace. Like, who knows what they'll do with that. But yeah, no, the Scholar's pet is not even worth thinking about really anymore. Like, just, it's not really affected by anything. The range on everything is so big now, it doesn't matter. So yeah, if they get rid of it, it literally doesn't change anything about the way Scholar plays. As for the question in front of me, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays, good day. Hi, I'd just like to confirm if I understood the details of the final parts of the Pandemonium raid correctly. With the raid story cementing a connection between the Ancients through Athena, Orosite, and Ultima the High Seraph from the Stormblood Alliance raids, am I right to say that Ultima is an alien or an extra-dimensional? So the only thing they say is that the Orosite seems otherworldly, which isn't a surprise. We have aliens on the planet. The problem is that our aliens came post-Sundering, but we know that there's aliens out there. Like, we've known that throughout all of Endwalker. So yeah, it's entirely I mean, it's implied enough that Ultima is an alien or from another dimension, which is not much of a surprise. If I recall, Ultima was summoned. Ultima was never summoned, if I recall correctly. I haven't done the Evil East raids in a while, but Ultima I don't think was ever necessarily, quote, summoned. It may have been like awoken or brought forth, but Ultima is Ultima. Ultima has been responsible for a lot of stuff. So, yeah, I don't think that's necessarily the case. Regardless, I want them to continue the side quest in the future with major events revolving around it. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest. I don't think they're going to ever make Pandemonium part of the MSQ, in all honesty. Or Evil East, to be honest. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hi, Happy. Hi. Why do we see Creative Business Unit 3's developer name at the front of trailers for games, but not 1 or 2? I've just noticed a lot of people chuckling at seeing this in the 16 trailers. It is because it was big news when they became their own unit because of Yoshi P being in charge of the unit. It's basically saying Yoshi P did this without saying Yoshi P did this. You know, like whenever you see whenever. I mean, yeah, that's all it is. I don't really need a further explanation. That's literally all it is. Like, oh, because everyone will say like, oh, Creative Business Unit 3. That's the one Yoshi P did. Oh, this is a Yoshi P game. Like, they're just gonna do that. Even if he had no involvement in it, they're just gonna do that. As long as it's part of Creative Business Unit 3. So yeah, I think that's literally it. It's just another way of hyping people up because the people who know. All right, there's just a couple of things left, and I have a headache that's coming on, so I'm just going to wrap these up. There was one that was asking if they would ever make raise a roll action with a cooldown. I've considered that. When I was talking about the raise thing earlier, that was actually what I was thinking they might do. And then in casual, but only incorporate a long cooldown in hard content, because in easy content, I think you still want mass resing to be available, even if it requires a specific roll to do it. Either way, I think that's the way that you meet in the middle there. And the other question was, let's see, I was surprised if you answered. What was like this? Wait, hold on. Now I actually have to read this one. I wouldn't be surprised if you answered questions like this way back when Nier Raid series was first announced. But if you did, your answer may have changed. Similar to the Nier raids, and regardless of the actual likelihood of it ever happening, if you could snap your fingers to make whatever crossover content you wanted. Okay, I want to make this clear. I don't want any crossover content. I want Final Fantasy XIV to focus on Final Fantasy XIV stuff. Is it cool occasionally? Yeah. Do I expect stuff like the 16 crossover and maybe a 7 rebirth or, eventually? Yeah, like I've come to expect that because the game has set that precedent. And if those are going to exist, are there rewards I'm going to want to will into existence? Like, yeah, absolutely. Like I want, obviously we're going to have a 16 collab at some point. So make sure you make Torgal a minion or a mount. But I don't ever actively wish for like, I would never want a Devil May Cry franchise. I would never want an Armored Core crossover. I'm sorry, Devil May Cry crossover. I would never ask, want, or desire those things. They have nothing to do with this game, and I do not need them in the game. It doesn't mean that they couldn't be good if they did it, i.e. Monster Hunter collaboration. Fantastic. I have zero complaints. Implemented beautifully with great additional content, permanent additional content to the game. Then we get the Nier raids, which completely derail an entire expansion's worth of potential storytelling to, I don't know, I guess to make Yoko Taro feel better and let him do his crazy shit, which I don't care about, even though I know all of it. I don't care. This isn't how I would have wanted to experience it. I'd rather it just have not been in our game because it did nothing to further our understanding or development of Final Fantasy XIV's world, lore, anything. It was a complete waste of time. Not to mention, I personally found all of the raids, not all of them. I found most of the raids super boring and uneventful and not fun. Music good though, but that's come on. Of course the music's good. Duh, you know. So I wouldn't wish anything into existence. That's it. That's all there is to it. And then there's I don't know. I guess that's the last one. Then it's just a bunch of comments at this point. Yeah, there you go. Let's yo, I did look like a zombie last week. So you can't see it when I'm streaming or when I'm recording in the middle of the day because the lighting is way more kind. I had perpetually it's like genetic. Everyone in my family has bags under their eyes permanently. I get plenty of sleep. I get that's, anywhere from 6 is the lower end, but I always get 7 or 8. That's the average that I manage to keep for myself. I have just always had those my whole life, bags under my eyes. And the lighting where I had this light on right here. In fact, I can turn it on right now. And I didn't have my glasses on because of, I can't turn it on because I just changed a bunch of stuff. Never mind. Yeah, it's at night, bright white light, no lighting over here to even it out. And I literally have permanent bags under my eyes. So I was not tired. I was perfectly fine, but thank you for your concern. This is my normal complexion, which is still not exactly a tall, dark, and handsome man, but is not the deathly appearance. I actually watched the video last week too, and I was like, damn, I look fucked up. I thought the same thing, don't you worry. No, I'm doing all right, though. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this week's Q&A. I skipped a few questions that were what do you think of the raid? I said I was going to, so I skipped a few. So apologies if I did, but, just how I wanted to handle it this week. Anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Ask your comments in the comment section of the video below, and be on the lookout for a slew of videos this week that I have to get done. Some Pandemonium stuff, some other 14 stuff, and then I got to get back on the news train for 16 because there were still a bunch of interview stuffs that I didn't go over. 7's been getting a little bit more media hype as of late, so there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Anyway, I will see all of you in the next video. Until then, I bid you adieu. Bye-bye.